Welcome to the Filipino American Women Project's podcast show, brought to you by our family on thenewfilipina.com.
We're your co-hosts, Jen Amos
and Nani Dominguez-Smith.
After 3 seasons of sharing stories for Pinays and by Pinays, we've gained the knowledge and language to articulate our experiences.
And now we're ready to tell our own.
As we venture off into the world of business partnership, we want to bring you along for the ride.
Keep listening to hear how we explore our Pinay identities together as podcasters, content creators, and entrepreneurs.
Now, let's get into the show.
Yay!
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to OMG, the season finale for season 4 of the TFAW Project. I'm your creator and co-host, Jen Amos. And as always, I have my co-host and business partner and amazing friend with me, Nani Dominguez-Smith. Nani, welcome to the finale of season 4 of the TFAW Project. Opening thoughts.
Thank you. It's been a time. Those are my opening thoughts.
That's a great way to start.
Yeah, it's been a time. So we're going to kind of just go over that and share with you guys what we'll be doing in the off season and when you can expect us back. Or maybe we're not going to say when we're going to expect us back, but when you can expect us back, we will be giving you a little insight into some changes that we'll be making, such as our new virtual home that you see here if you're watching us on YouTube.
Yes. Yeah. If
or on our app.
Yeah. I want to give some credit to Nani here because last minute, she just put together this amazing background with, you may notice in the back, our website, thenewfilipina.com, which we'll get to a little later. But well done, Nani. I feel like this looks really good on our skin tone. And I feel like it's very TFAW Project-esque. And
yes.
Thank you to whoever created the stock photo for us to make it look like we're in the same office, literally the same office together. Originally I was like, oh, let's just blur the background. But you're like, no, I want to make it pretty. And look, it worked out for both of us. It looks great.
Look, it makes so much of a difference. I mean, isn't this so much more enjoyable to watch, you guys? Us in our cozy. This is what, if we had a real brick and mortar store, or not store, but office space, I feel like we would decorate it like this.
Yeah, I mean, I would need help with that because I'm not a really good interior designer. But yes, this looks great. I noticed that all the things in our background have a brown hues to it. I was like, oh, yeah, brown and white, and it's oh, that's great because it matches our skin and the fact that we're a TFAW Project and
that was intentional.
Yeah, and then also you may notice that we have this background that has a yellow and orange fade, and this is something we whipped up together last minute. It was one of the things available on our recording platform here. And the name of this beautiful background is called Mango. So we're like, oh, well, that's fitting for us.
Yeah. Yeah, like a Philippine mango. Here we are.
So if you all are listening to the podcast, we highly recommend that you join us on YouTube and check out the video version of this, because one of the things that we really want to get into for season 5 of our show is definitely more video production. And thanks to my husband's account, I'm able to, hijack his account and do live streaming here and recording. And
shout out to Scott.
Shout out to my husband, Scott. And just really excited to, kind of tease out all of you of what's to come. But let's start with the fact that we are ending this season. So going back to the beginning of season 4 of the TFAW Project, we started right at the beginning of Filipino American History Month in 2022. And at that time, we had decided that we were going to do a weekly show, from what I recall. And then for the new year, right before the new year, we had decided that we were going to publish an episode once a month. So we had one come out in January, February, March. I think April, at the time of April, because I was hanging out with a lot of people, which we'll get to in a little bit, we weren't able to release an episode. And then also, in addition to that, with all the things that is going on behind the scenes right now for our show, and even in Nani and I's personal and professional life, we realize, for this recording, this should be the recording to wrap up this season. Part of why I'm grateful that Nani wants to wrap this up with me is because I'm just so preoccupied with everything we're doing in the back end. And I want to relieve ourselves of this like responsibility to publish frequently to the point where it almost feels like I'm doing it just to do it and it doesn't feel good to keep doing it. And I want to focus on where we're already building community, which is in thenewfilipina.com, and how can we continue to grow that. And part of that is, saying, you know what, let's end this season and focus on, this is what I've been saying for myself lately, Nani, is getting our house in order so that, when that is up and running and that feels comfortable again, we can come back for the next season. In a little bit, we'll get into how you can stay in touch with us in the off season. But I wanted to pause there real quick and see, Nani, if you had any additional thoughts to add to that.
Yeah, I do. Just for anyone who is just recently finding the podcast or hasn't listened in a while and is just revisiting it now, I do just want to remind you all that TFAW Project is so much more than just a podcast. We have an entire community that is convening on a daily basis on a whole app that is dedicated to our community, our book club, our private podcast. There's all kinds of stuff that we do outside of recording for this podcast. And so we really encourage you to invest yourselves in those spaces and just check them out at the very least if you haven't before or if you haven't in a while, because that is where most of our attention is being pulled to these days. And so we are trying to look at the bigger picture here and see how we can work smarter and not harder in terms of building our community and advancing our mission of amplifying the stories of Filipino American women beyond just, again, this podcast.
Yeah. And I do want to give a shout out to people who have been actively listening to the show. I am looking at the stats, and even in just the last couple of weeks, we've had hundreds of people listening, despite us not really publishing a lot. So if our podcast is really your primary place to digest our content and to engage with us, then I just want to thank you for that. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity to encourage you in the off season to check out thenewfilipina.com, which we will do a video tour here in a little bit, where you could actually subscribe to our private podcast called Chismes with Jen and Nani. And that podcast has been going on for some time now. I do believe that as of this recording, if I can pull it up on my phone here, we already have over 50 episodes, like 50 plus episodes. In fact, today we just released our 54th episode on our private podcast. And there's a lot of juicy stuff on there. I mean, it's called Chismes with Jen and Nani for a reason. I want to give a shout out to Rachel, who, when she first started listening to our private podcast, she described it as the rated R version of the TFAW Project. And so, if podcasting, again, is your main way of staying in touch with us and hearing what we're up to and staying connected with our community, we highly, highly encourage you to check out thenewfilipina.com and check out our private podcast to stay in touch with us, because I take it as a personal pride to publish. Man, I've been saying a lot of P's, and I just feel like you can hear all the P's on my mic right now.
It's because you don't have that like screen thingy
I need
that
to
you
have
normally
like a
have.
bopping thing. Like, let me see.
Yeah.
I don't think I have it. Sorry, y'all. You'll have to do. Even though it says that the puh stuff is like it's like built inside, I can still hear myself saying all the P's. But anyway, I'm gonna try to say the P's a little more softly for everyone's entertainment. But anyway, it's become like a sense of pride for me to make sure that, since we started this private podcast, I think almost 2 years ago, Nani, to publish an episode every other week. And so that is why here we are now, 54 episodes in, and we share anything from, past workshops to past live shows to the replays of our book clubs to just anything that even you and I want to share on a personal level, Nani. Like, we have that pre-recording all the way back to when you first had a hero and you were out of pocket for a month. And before we recorded on TFAW Project, we decided to do kind of a warm-up on Chismes with Jen and Nani, like a 12, 15-minute warm-up. And in that warm-up, I was staying in the middle of nowhere at a farm in West Virginia. And my cat, what is now my cat, actually, we had a cat trying to break into the Airbnb I was in at that time as we were recording. And you're only able to hear this recording, that I think was all the way almost 2 years ago on Chismes with Jen and Nani. And so, again, if you really enjoy digesting our content via podcast, in the off season, we highly encourage you, to check out our private podcast. Nani, anything you want to add to that?
No, private podcast, our app, our book club, our newsletter. Those are all places that you will find us when don't see us popping up in your podcast app. So again, there are just lots of other parts of our business that we're watering right now, other than producing for this show. So we want you guys to know that, and we would love for you to follow along and just dive more into this community if you appreciate our content.
Yes. So I guess nothing else. I'm just going to pull up like the last thing I shared in our app a little later, just to have it in my site. Okay, anyway. All right. So let's go ahead and give you all a tour of the newfilipina.com. And if you're joining us via video, you get to see how fancy we are now with our screen share. So give me 1 second here to pull this up. Share screen.
Yeah, actually, this kind of requires you to join via video. So if you are not watching the video already, then go click on the link because it's in the description wherever you're listening to this.
Exactly. Yes. So if you visit thenewfilipina.com, I recommend that if you do join us, like you can join via mobile. But I think initially, if you want to get acclimated to the platform, I highly recommend that you join us via desktop. So opening up your browser and going to thenewfilipina.com. If you are watching my video right now, we currently open up by saying, welcome home. This is your one-stop shop for building community with like-minded Pinays. Talking about how this community is a result of our listeners on the TFAW Project, TFAWproject.com. And it just came time that we had to grow beyond our social media, grow beyond our newsletter, grow beyond Discord, and actually have a dedicated, customized community, an app for you, the listener. We've tried to engage with all of you in many different various ways, but we had just come to find at the end of the day for Nani and I to be mindful of our bandwidth and our time and to not confuse everyone. It was just great for us to have the newfilipina.com. So while this is what it is, I don't know if we're going to change this landing page eventually, Nani. Well, y'all stay tuned in the upcoming weeks/months. One of the main ways to get involved in the newfilipina.com is our Chismis Corner. So Nani, this was actually your idea, like to name it the Chismis Corner. Why don't you tell our listeners, like, what can they expect if they join the Chismis Corner?
So before we launched our app on the newfilipina.com, we previously had a Discord channel for our community. And that was where we would chat with you guys every day. And if you're familiar with Discord, then you can separate your conversation into like millions and millions of tags. And so we had a tag, or I guess a room, you could say, whatever they call a channel, for all the topics that we used to talk about, everything from life, culture, personal development, entrepreneurship, all these kind of things, even like down to sports and physical activity and food channels and movie channels and all of that kind of stuff. So on our app, we tried to consolidate those categories into like larger umbrella categories, because it's not quite set up the same way, but we can have separate rooms for separate conversation topics, similar to how Discord worked. And so the Chismis Corner is like our Discord 2.0, if you will. And those of you who were on our Discord will know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you have never heard of Discord before or seen the platform, then you're probably like, what the hell is she talking about? But the point is, the Chismis Corner is just where we have our like daily chats and conversations with each other, and we send each other photos and links, and we take polls about random questions like, do you shower in the morning or do you shower at night? And just kind of expand on all the little ways that we are growing and learning in life.
Yeah. And without actually showing you what's going on in the channel, because I really do want to, protect the people who are actually a part of it. When you go to the Chismis Corner, you could actually sort our conversation. So right now we have like 5 main categories. We have the Start Here category, which we recommend for everyone who's new to the platform to check out. We have the news space, I guess is what we could call it, which is basically whenever I have a major update, or Nani does, or even anyone in our community has a major update to share. We also have life and culture, which is kind of like it's just kind of like, sharing your day to day, what's going on in your day to day. And so, as Nani mentioned, we consolidated that from all these other little topics we had, like a foodie channel, a music channel, a gamer channel, entrepreneurship channel.
Sorry,
we consolidated
can I
that onto
interject
one.
for just a second? The way
Yeah.
that we want you guys to think about this space is like social media, essentially. But imagine one app or one platform where you can do an Instagram type of post, or you can do a Facebook type of post, or you can do a Tumblr kind of post. Like there's options for all the different types of posts that you might want to do, whether it's like image based or text based, or, you know, you want to elicit a response from people. There's like all different formats, I guess, of posting that you can do. But it's the same idea as scrolling a feed on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever.
Yes, I second everything Nani said. That was a better way. I was really just like,
well, I know I was going to forget if I waited until you were done. So thank you for letting me interrupt you.
You're always allowed to interrupt me, Nani. Because sometimes I always I'm really just wing it. Yeah, because I'm like literally like trying to wing it. So we didn't have an agenda, y'all.
Dennis just edit that so it sounded like, you know, smooth.
Yeah. And if you don't, that's okay, Dennis. We're totally fine with it. And so yeah, the Chismis Corner is really just a way for, you know, day-to-day dialogue. Again, other topics are even personal development or even entrepreneurship. And part of why we have entrepreneurship in here is because that is a journey that Nani and I are on together now. And we just want to share that experience with anyone else in our community who are also entrepreneurs. And so we have that channel as well. So this is really a great place for people to get started. Also, I want to remind you all that if you have been involved in our reflection series, our free 5-day reflection series on Instagram, this is pretty much like a step up to that. Like if you want to continue to have, you know, day-to-day conversations with us, like if you want to go beyond the 5 days, that's really what the Chismis Corner is for all of you to partake in. So that's usually the first level that people get involved in. And you know what? Some people choose to stay there, and that is more than okay, because I think that one thing that we take a lot of pride in on the show is just having a space to have open dialogue about so many different topics. And I really do feel like the Chismis Corner is that one place that we get to provide for our community that I believe is quite rare, especially a community that is very encouraging and listens and, you know, advocates for one another. I'm so grateful. And I'm constantly impressed by, you know, our community, especially if you and I are not engaging in it, Nani, to see what our members are actually doing with or without us it's just a testament to the space that we have created together.
Yeah. And we do also acknowledge that people come to our community for different reasons and at different places in their journey. And so if you are someone who is just wanting to kind of observe and scope the scene and check out who's there and what kind of conversations we're having and, you know, what thoughts that you might have about that kind of stuff, then the Chismis Corner is a great place for you. And if you're someone who's looking for a little bit more in terms of diving into the unconventional, like learning opportunities that we actually provide on this platform, we also have more options that Jen is going to get into more momentarily as well.
Yeah. So maybe you don't want to do day-to-day conversations, or maybe you want to have more intellectual conversations with us. Then part of what we also offer in our community is our book club. So this is called the Chismis with Jen and Nani Book Club. And we meet with our members once a month to go over a book or two or three. Depends on, you know, where everyone's headspace at. Nowadays, we have like a main book that we're reading. And, you know, we are opening up the idea to our members to explore other books and share that with us. And what I really love about the book club, Nani, is it's not necessarily the book that's important. It's more like, to me, I see the book as an icebreaker for people to talk more, to just, you know, to talk about like what certain parts of the book really resonated with them. And ultimately, you know, giving them like a prompt or a topic to share more of their own story. Because if there's anything I've come to find, as grateful as we are to have had so many people be guests on our show on the TFAW Project, I know that there are still people in our community who maybe aren't ready to, you know, directly share their story. And so I feel like reading a book together gives everyone a safe space or a safe environment to share like, hey, you know, this chapter really resonated with me because, and it's been quite interesting. Like at the time of this recording, we are reading In the Country by Mia Alvar. And there are a couple of stories in this book that have really shown different perspectives of our members. Like even though we're reading the same story, Like we had people interpreting it differently, especially when it comes to like, let's say the different class systems that are displayed in certain stories, if you know what I mean, Nani. And so it's just so cool that we all can look at the same thing together and yet share our own perspective, our own interpretation of it, and ultimately walk away with a more broad perspective of what that story is about and overall like the Filipino diaspora.
Yeah, I think that what I'm realizing and the reason why we like to keep the book club so malleable, and again, why we always stress that there's never any pressure to actually read the book. If you want to join the book club, you're more than welcome to just join for the conversation, is because people read so many different ways and they have so many different preferences, and the way that we interpret stories and information is different, you know, it varies by the individual. And so sometimes we're reading a more historically dense book about Filipinos' history in California. And sometimes we're reading a psychological book about how Filipino culture influences the assertiveness of an individual. And sometimes we're reading stories and fiction about experiences of Filipinos in the diaspora outside of America. And so I think that it's especially fun for me. I think it's also in times of like stress and hardship and adversity, being able to like escape into these books, whether I'm reading fiction or nonfiction, is like a really big part of my self-care. And being able to share that with a group of people who can also say like, oh, well, I'm not going through what you're going through right now, but I read this same story and here's what I took from it, or here's what resonated for me, just takes that, like the impact that it has on my mental health to another level, you know? And so I think that that is really the true power of like building community, which is at the heart of the mission of the TFAW Project. So I just think it's a really beautiful opportunity. And I'm really grateful to everyone who is part of our book club and who indulges us, you know, when maybe we pick a book that they're not thinking that they're going to be necessarily interested in, and just kind of working with us through the process and being willing to share their thoughts, because it is very impactful on me, at least. So I wanted to share that.
You know, one of the things that I really like about our book club is when people who have not read the book attend, because like right now, top of mind for me is Suki. So Suki, and we'll talk about this in upcoming episodes or in the private podcast, Chismes with Jen and Nani. But Suki was in town in Hampton Roads here, where I live, for the first time. And, you know, she was able to attend a book club in person with me and Allie. So shout out to Suki and Allie for making their way out to my office to actually do an in-person book club with Nani and Hannah. So shout out to Hannah for joining us in that last book club. And it was interesting because like all of us, but Suki read the book. And one thing I found very interesting is like Suki was just listening, you know, and I think I loved how she like listened to us and our interpretations. And because of that, you know, she came up with her own thought, you know, her own perspective, and added to that. And I love how we were able to make that collective effort to, you know, in a sense, try to teach her what the book is about and our interpretation of it. And she was able to make her own interpretation at the end. And I absolutely love that. I think that is our modern day way of oral storytelling, you know, saying, hey, this is a story we heard, is what it's about, and this is the lessons we take away from it. And she was able to make something of that as a result. And so I really like that. And I hope that in sharing like Suki's story of joining us for book club, that, you know, anyone who doesn't read the book but still wants to be a part, still wants to listen and make their own interpretation based on what everyone is sharing, you know, to know that you are welcome to be here. And also, I also want to stress that, you know, for a while, shout out to Hannah, hopefully she doesn't mind me putting her on the spot. But, you know, for a while, she would only join via chat for a number of reasons. But for the last one, she actually joined via video. And so I love, Nani, how, you know, people can start from just listening in to maybe joining the chat to actually being on video and talking with us. Like, it's just so nice to see that progression in our members for our book club.
Well, it shows how people inch their way into feeling comfortable, you know, to joining spaces like these, because not everybody has an extroverted, outgoing personality that's going to jump into a Zoom room and be like, hey, you know, I have this to say. Some people are really just not like that. And I can attest to that personally. You know, at work, I'm like the most silent person on meetings, but here, obviously, I'm very vocal. So it just speaks to the level of safety that I feel in this space and the time that I've had to grow comfortable in it. And it's a really beautiful thing when we can see members of our community kind of taking those same baby steps into our space.
Yes, I agree. All right, moving on. So we already talked about this earlier, but if you want to continue to listen to us in the off season, we highly, highly recommend that you check out our private podcast, which once again, you can learn more about when you visit thenewfilipina.com. And I'm not really going to reiterate what I said earlier, but yeah, basically it's a way to get the rated R version of the TFAW Project and also, past workshops, events, and just more behind the scenes stuff with our show overall. It's really cool, Nani, to know that like every now and then I'll check the analytics for our private podcast and to find that we've already had like hundreds of downloads on this private podcast since we started. It's very humbling because it's like, well, it's a private podcast. So does that mean that like it's going to take a certain kind of person to want to invest in it first and foremost? Mm-hmm. And the fact that we do have people listening to it. And even this morning when our latest episode came out, to see that there was already people who woke up and listened to it. It was like, wow, like there are people.
Cringe at this morning's episode, you guys. If you're one of the people that has listened to that already and you're also listening to this, then I will just want to apologize. We had a morning and we were also in person together. So there was just a lot going on. And I'm sure you guys could see that. And you're welcome. That's what we mean by candid and rated R version of the TFAW Project.
Yes. Yeah, we may or may not had been having a lot of fun before we started recording.
We'll just leave it at that. Since this is not the rated R version of our show.
We're going to keep it PG here. And you're going to get a taste of what we're kind of embarrassed about. We recorded that replay of us recording in person for the first time. Actually, I want to say that was the first time we recorded together on video, because when we first met back in 2019, we had like a handful, like a little more than a handful of people join us. And we only recorded the audio version, where
we sat in a circle, just to tell you guys how we have evolved this show. Our first live recording together back in 2019, we all sat in a circle on the floor and put our phone, I think Jen's phone, on a chair in the middle of the circle.
Yeah, it's true. And then
that's how we recorded.
And you were so courteous because every time someone else was talking, you would turn the seat, so the microphone would like pick up someone else's voice.
Yeah.
It was like, and then the seat was like screech. And they had that little like squeaky sound.
You could hear it in between each person switching.
And that was so cool that like everyone was willing to do that because they didn't have to do that.
Yeah, I think Aubrey had even brought like a little speaker, like a microphone, like whatever you call those little fuzzy things to help with the quality, and it didn't really help, or we weren't able to use it. And that was a really, really fun time. But there was no video and it was horrible audio quality. Yeah, but it was there.
It was there. And it is available. It is available on our TFAW Project show. When I re-listen to this recording, I'll make sure to add it in the show notes so you all can hear like the early stages. Now, if you want the video version of what Nani and I did a couple weeks ago, you gotta subscribe to our private. you gotta pay. Exactly.
I have no shame in saying you need to pay for that.
You gotta pay for our shame.
I like that. Actually, that can be our new tagline.
Yeah. Exactly. Like if you really want to like get the chismis on Nani and I and how candid we could really be, then you got to pay. You got to go to thenewfilipina.com and subscribe for our private podcast.
Yes.
So overall, those are the three main offerings we have on thenewfilipina.com. We have the daily chats at the Chismis Corner. Yeah, the daily chats at the Chismis Corner. We have our monthly book club and the Chismis Corner. And every single one that you open up, it'll get into more detail of what each of them offer. And
okay, but wait, hold on. Let's rewind for a second because so if you're looking at this screenshot here, our first level of engagement here is the Chismis Corner, which we talked about earlier. And if you subscribe to either of the higher levels, either the book club or the private podcast level, they also come with the preceding levels, if that makes sense. Yes. So like if you subscribe to the book club, then you also get access to the Chismes Corner. And if you subscribe to the private podcast, you also get access to the book club and the Chismes Corner.
Yes. Thank you for elaborating on that, Nani. So you can see, like, I like to aim high and assume that everyone wants to subscribe to our private podcast because they want to pay for our shame. So that is why that is the first tier we have here. The first option. But it's great because when you sign up for the private podcast, just like what Nani said, you also have access to the book club and the Chismes Corner. If you start with the Chismes Corner, basically you'll be a part of our, former Discord community, essentially, just upgraded. And then, like she said, if you decide to upgrade to the book club, the Chismes Corner, you can see this little icon here, that kind of, this logo represents the Chismes Corner, which will update these logos later on. But you can see how the spaces get added, the benefits get added as you go more toward the left. And again, assuming that you want to pay for our shame, you can aim high and subscribe to our private podcast. And you know what, Nani? In reality, maybe not everyone is ready to commit any further, and that's okay. We want to meet you all where you're at. As I mentioned before, that we have people who continue to listen to our podcast and may not engage with us. They may not ever message us or email us or what have you. But if you still want to stay in touch with us in the off season, while, maybe you're not ready to join the newfilipino.com, maybe you need like a free step, to get into it, then, we have the link right here at the bottom website, the TFAWproject.com. And you can go ahead and check out all the episodes that we have going on here. Or actually, sorry, let me share this thread. So, and we need to update this photo, Nani. More on that later.
I can't wait to update that. Ooh, can we do that right now?
Yes. Well,
okay,
let's
when
do
we're
it.
done. When we're done.
Yeah.
Well, if you're listening to this right now, we will have updated the picture on our homepage of our website, which if you have been listening to the TFAW Project ever, like before now, you will understand why that's such a big deal. And that just made me really excited at the thought of updating it because we have some good stuff in store.
So take this all in before you see a major
before you'll never see this
facelift.
photo again.
Major update. Is so different when we come back for season 4. And so the other way, in addition to our public free podcast, you can also subscribe to publishing new newsletters. But let me reassure you that we are doing a lot of revamping in the back end. The other way, in addition to subscribing to our free podcast show, TFAW Project, the TFAW Project, you can also subscribe to our free newsletter. Here are the options to stay engaged with us. And if you click here to go to the newsletter, it'll take you to this page, this landing page, where I'm really excited about this because we will be revamping our newsletter. We're going to be revamping a lot of things. And I'm just overwhelmed. And I was saying this in the newfilipino.com, like in our Chismes Corner, to everyone, that like how grateful I am that there are so many people who have received so much value from our community that they are going out of their way to like give us advice on how to take our show to the next level. And one of the ways that we're going to take our show to the next level is with our newsletter. So if you want to stay on top of that, if you want to be the first to start, getting these teasers and updates on what's going on in the community, highly encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter. And that is it. I'm going to go stop sharing my screen. And Nani, any thoughts you want to add to all the amazing things we have going on at thenewfilipino.com?
No, I think you just did a beautiful job elaborating on what I said in the beginning about how and peep our cute little banner.
Look at this banner.
Just
Bam.
why
It's another
cool thing that you will see us doing in season 5. So we are excited to take this little break away from recording so that we can focus on all these other things that we just walked you guys through. If you haven't already explored our app, you can do so at thenewfilipino.com. And we would love if you guys would join us there until we return, which is, I don't know when, but it will be soon.
Yes.
It won't be forever. We're just taking a little breaky break.
Yeah. And, again, like one thing I was saying in our community is like how overwhelmed and grateful and humbled I am that we have so many people in our community who have just gone out of their way to guide us on how to take our show to the next level. And so part of going off season is so that I can take time to internalize everything that people have given us and, brainstorm and discuss it with Nani. And
it's kind of like without us initiating it, we've already like God has sent us a focus group.
Yeah.
Like a little mini focus group, as we say, that we want to, embark on this journey of standing up our community into an actual business model. And so, I don't know if you, the listener, are like spiritual or religious or whatever, but Jen and I are. So we're using that reference and we hope it doesn't offend you.
Well, just know that there's a greater power that's helping us keep the show going. And I'm so...
the universe, if you will, sent us a mini focus group to DIY like we do everything.
Yeah, for sure. It means so much. And, I mentioned this at the beginning of the year, and I'll mention this again. Like, there's two words I have to represent this year. The first one is to receive, which I feel like you and I have been doing so much of. Again, just a shout out to all the people that have been helping us behind the scenes and going out of their way to like just share their experience in the online marketing space and social media and just everything that we're trying to build here, to come forward and just share that with us. There's that. And then the second word I had of this year is momentum. Receiving, taking what everyone is giving us and like building momentum with that. And, part of momentum is always going to look, I think to me, like momentum takes different shapes and sizes. Like it kind of seems like we're slowing down here to speed up. But the way that I see it now is rather than saying that we're slowing down to speed up, we're just adjusting. We're adjusting to like where we're at right now and what we need to tackle. And, Nani, I just always want to express my appreciation for our partnership and, always even trusting me when I feel like, hey, I think we need to take a step back on something, or I think we need to take a break here or there. Just the trust we have between each other and what we've established in the last 4 years is like pretty mind blowing. And I'm incredibly grateful to it. I'm really grateful to you. One thing that we will not get into detail here for this time is like all of the, I'm going to say obstacles that you and I have gone through individually. And I don't know if we've gone through obstacles together, but I just feel like all the things that we've had to juggle in order to make the show possible. So that's more of like a chismis with Jen and Nani. But for now, I want to end with some final lessons or final things that we're proud of, because we did start off this year kicking off the new Filipino.com. And even though we keep saying that we have more to build, I think we've come a long way, Nani. And I think we should take, these last couple of minutes to pat ourselves on the back and, tease everyone at what's to come. So would you like to go first or do you want me to wing it?
I feel like you should wing it because I'm not like in the most positive space here to where I can think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, you go first.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so let me think about this. Okay, so a couple things that come to mind for me because I just came up with this question is I'm just really proud of our consistency. And even if our consistency doesn't look like posting on social media every day or sending out a newsletter every week, when I say consistency, I'm really speaking to like always knowing when to add more wood to the fire, so to speak, like keeping the flames alive with our community, because we have tackled so many things this year, especially starting the new Filipino.com. And again, with everything that's going on in our lives, because I often want to mention that, this is not our bread and butter. Like Nani and I have professional lives out of this and our own families. And so to be able to make this a priority in our spare time and sometimes our super spare time, I really have to credit the community that shows up for us. And I also want to credit us, Nani, for having that sense of responsibility to show up, even if there are times when maybe we don't want to show up. Like I'll be candid, like April was a big month for me, like seeing you in person, seeing Stacy in person, seeing Suki in person, and Ali, who is a local friend, but for her to help me in, giving Suki a great experience here in Hampton Roads. And I loved it all. Also, one thing I was saying in the new Filipino.com is I'm ready to, kind of reset and reflect and recharge for everything that's gone on this month. And it's okay to say that. Like, this is not me saying I'm burnt out. It's me saying like, you know what? I feel like I got what I needed from that whole experience. And now I need to give myself time to take it easy,
Yeah, I totally feel you. And I think that there are just in life in general, not just with our work with the TFAW Project, there are seasons where you're meant to be absorbing life and the environment around you and whatever is going on in your circumstance. And then there are times for harvesting and like actually processing all of that information you've absorbed and like pushing it back out into your community. And so we're just in one of those. I appreciate your ability to kind of take a pulse on where we're at. And I think that I am personally not as good as at doing that. And so I do appreciate when you kind of interject and say, hey, I know you're really preoccupied right now. And I know this might feel like a lot. And I see that you're trying to show up anyway. And I want to remind you, we don't have to do this today. You know, we don't have to do it in the next month. We can shift gears. And I guess the first kind of win that I would celebrate for us is always picking it back up. You know, even when, like you said, maybe we don't feel like doing this today. I mean, not today in particular. In particular, today I feel good.
Okay, we're done.
So I'm happy to be here. But, you know, there are some days, like you said, where we don't feel that way. Like we're human and we go through things and we have lives and lots of different things flying at us from all directions. And so I just appreciate your constant reminder to me to like be mindful of that and take note of that and speak up when you need to catch a break and you feel like you can't. And I am especially grateful to you, like as a person, as a friend, as a sister, not just a co-host and a business partner, for like really doing that for me and in a way that like nobody else really can.
Yeah. Well, okay. I just try to keep it together.
I know. Let's not do that. Let's not go there.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I'll say before we start crying is
I have lashes on today. Okay. Let's just be mindful of that.
We got to protect all these lashes, y'all.
That's rare.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. You know, I thank you for saying that. And thank you for trusting me because, you know, it's those moments where I can see in some, you know, this is just kind of the big sister in me and being the eldest daughter. But sometimes I can sense, and even in learning in myself and learning what my boundaries are, you know, I can recognize when, you know, we say we'll do something and we say we're adamant about it and we promise we'll do it. And then in time, our actions don't necessarily show it, not because we're being, you know, forgetful or, you know, entitled or we're lying. It's just because we don't realize so many external forces that's getting us in the way of keeping to our word. And sometimes it takes a person to, you know, gently point that out. And so, you know, like part of like what I need to kind of reset and reflect and recharge on is really this entire month of having met so many of us in person and kind of like understanding what that meant for me and how I want to continue to show up in the community. And, you know, one of the things I've really learned about myself so far, I just had this epiphany yesterday is like how like emotionally available I love making myself for the community. And I'm realizing I'm at a place where I need a recharge. You know, I need to have some time to myself and, you know, reconnect with God and, you know, just like reinvest back in, you know, my family and my local community and just, you know, recharge, you know, so that I can come back like stronger than ever, not to necessarily be self-sacrificial and always be emotionally available, but to be more, you know, mindful of like how much of my energy, you know, I'm putting out there. And also like continuing to learn the language of like, how do I say to Nani that I know she wants to be here. I can also tell that like she really cannot be here right now because of like whatever she's going through. And like, how do I say that in a way that is like loving and kind and patient and not necessarily attacking, right? Because like that is what I'm most grateful for our community is how we give ourselves grace to find that language to say, hey, I'm just checking in, just checking in. I notice a behavior change and I just want to see if you're okay. I think for me, it's like I used to be afraid to do that in the past in general. I used to just kind of like overcompensate by being over giving or, you know, overcompensating for someone else. But for you to receive like the way I communicate with you in a way that makes you feel seen and respected while also honoring where I'm at too in this project, it's a beautiful thing. So thank you. Thank you for letting me exercise that kind of language with you. And again, just like learning to pace ourselves because this is our show. I always say this, we're never not going to be Filipina. So what's the rush? Like, what's the rush? Like, we can always pick this back up. And again, just because we're going off season, it doesn't mean we're off. Like, we are very much still going to be active, especially on the newfilipina.com.
Yes. And I appreciate your just being so patient and considerate and compassionate with the way that you handle these things. Because, you know, if this were our bread and butter, if this were like a job, I don't know about you guys, but like my real job, I don't think would be that kind to me in the moments where I'm just not able to show up. You know, even if I'm physically there and I'm physically trying, like mentally and emotionally, sometimes the hurdle is just, sometimes you're just not able to hop over it, you know, and that's okay. Like tomorrow is another day.
Yeah.
And the ate that you are to me is the ates that we want to be to the rest of our community. And I think that what you're trying to say is, as much as you are kind of taking a pulse and trying to point out in a nice, healthy way to me what I might need in that moment to take care of myself, you're also doing the same for yourself by saying, I'm here for you and I'm doing this for you. And, you know, for everybody in our community, not just me. And I also need to step back to do it, to have time and space to do it for myself as well.
Yes. Well said. Read between the lines there. And yeah, with that said, I don't know what else to add, Nani.
Well, we already have the last quote that I put.
Oh, yes.
The ground is pregnant with the seeds you planted.
Yes.
Hopefully that makes sense if you guys remember what Jen was just talking about a couple minutes ago.
Yes.
And if you don't, then rewind and re-listen to what she just said.
Yes. And it's my hope to build off of that closing quote that, you know, we give birth to, like, you're all about to see the birth that's going to come in season 4 and building up to it through our newsletter, which you can subscribe to for free, and also the newfilipina.com, in which you can check out today, whether it's via mobile app or on our desktop. And
yes,
yeah, I guess that's it, Nani. This has been fun. How do we wrap up? How do we end season 4? I guess we kind of did, but like I just don't know.
I mean, I guess just like this, you guys.
Yes. Okay, bye. No, I'm kidding.
Bye.
Okay, love you. Bye. Yeah. So again, yeah. So in closing, sorry, in all seriousness, thank you all for, especially to our day ones who've been listening to our show way back in summer 2019. If you are still listening to our show since then, thank you.
Shout out to you.
Yeah. Shout out to you. I hope that you make yourself seen to us. We would love to even just
email us or DM us or something if you're listening to this right now and you have been listening to us since season 1, anytime in season 1, email us because we want to know who you are and we are going to connect with you. We want to connect with you in the off season.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, please connect with us. Since we're not going to be investing so much time in doing this, we will have kind of more time to actually engage with you. And especially if you're part of the newfilipina.com. So with that said, Nani, it's been great. Obviously, we're going to keep talking offline. But to our listeners, thank you all so much for being a part of this journey. Please make yourself seen to us if you feel ready. We already mentioned all the call to actions, so we're not going to mention it one more time. Unless you listen to the outro of this episode, then you'll hear the call to actions again. But yes, thank you. We hope that you have a wonderful rest of the spring season and probably summer. Who knows? We don't know when we're going to come back. And we just love you all. We appreciate you all. And we'll chat soon.
We'll see you soon on the newfilipina.com.
Yes, wonderful.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Filipino American Women Project podcast show.
Ready to tell your story? DM us on Instagram at the Filipino American Woman to join us for our free 5-day reflection series.
Check out the show notes of this episode to subscribe to our free weekly newsletter for the latest show updates and episode releases.
Lastly, if you're ready to dive into community, download our app and join us at thenewfilipina.com.
That's all for now. Chat with you next time.